All right, let's move on to the co-main event here. And again, a big reminder to you guys, 225 of you in the chat. Please do hit that like. We're close to that 100 like mark. Make sure you guys do that for us. And that will show us a great amount of appreciation and support and keep us coming back on a week-to-week basis. All right, let's get to the co-main event fight. And I cannot wait for this one, especially for the return of our guy, Gregor Gillespie, coming into this fight as obviously a big favorite here. Minus 250-ish is what I last saw him at. Minus 265 now, plus 225 on Brad Riddell. I love me some Gregor Gillespie, man. That guy probably, with Khabib outside of the UFC now, probably has the best wrestling in the 155-pound division. Islam Makhachev could probably make a statement for that as well. But Gregor, man, probably one of the best wrestling by far. The guy is not just a one-and-doneer with his wrestling. Goes out there, and if he's not able to get that first takedown, he changes it into a second one, and a third one, and a fourth one. And he doesn't let you go until he gets your ass onto the ground. And he does a very good job of doing that against all of his past opponents, except one, Kevin Lee. Kevin Lee, I feel like he respected him in the grappling realm and saying, okay, I got to, soften this guy up on the feet a little bit before I start getting my wrestling going. And before that happened, and not to mention, he did some really good work with that front jab of his. He was able to really bust up Kevin Lee before Kevin Lee put his lights out. But the best game that Gregor Gillespie shows is when he gets his wrestling game going. Now, with Brad Riddell, on the other hand, there's always that city kickboxing tax on these guys. And that's what I think is kind of keeping him away from being a plus 300, plus 350 underdog in this spot. And not to mention, obviously, the knockout loss that Gregor Gillespie is coming off of. But, man, if you're telling me that guys that have had success in the UFC against Brad Riddell, and that success has come from grappling and wrestling, and now you're giving him the best grappler and wrestler in the UFC, or at least in the 155-pound division, yeah, I don't see Riddell winning this fight. Like, I feel like his knockout powers have almost diminished since coming to the UFC. He recorded a knockdown against Magomed Mustafayev and obviously against Jamie Mullarkey, but he has yet to capture a knockout victory in his 3 fights in the UFC. But again, Alex De Silva, Jamie Mullarkey, and Magomed Mustafayev all getting him down, all getting good control time. But the difference between those guys and our guy Gregor Gillespie is that Gregor can go 15, 25 minutes if he needs to, whereas Alex and these guys start to slow down after that first round. That's where we see the drop-off of, yeah, they are still able to complete takedowns, but they're not able to hold Brad down. And then once Brad gets this to a distance, he's able to really pick these guys apart and start doing his work. But I don't think he's going to have the benefit of being able to get back to his feet as often as he did in those last fights, nor do I think you have the benefit of having the slightly better cardio than his opponents. So, yeah, I like Gregor in this spot, and I think he's very live for a submission too. The one thing that I like about Gregor's game outside of his wrestling is that he's a really high-level jiu-jitsu player too. That's one thing that a lot of these high-level wrestlers kind of forget about. Yeah, it's great to get the fight to the ground, but what do you do once you get the fight to the ground? You're just going to hold him down? Are you going to try Sarah McMahon it? It's not going to work out. It just doesn't work out for some of these wrestlers. Whereas Gregor Gillespie, he's very active. He's very fluid on top, passes guard very well. More often than not, looks for that arm triangle choke, one of his favorite submissions. And then if he's not able to get that, hops on over to full mount, starts raining down big shots, lets you give up your back, either sinks in a choke or starts going ham on your on the back of your head with some ground and pound as well. So I think we see a very emphatic return for Gregor here. There is obviously the possibility of a Brad Riddell KO. We can't just completely completely dismiss the fact that the knockout is live. Plus 550 on Riddell by KO. If you're betting Riddell at all, that's a spot to go. There's no way he wins this fight by decision. There's no way he keeps Gregor off of him for 15 minutes to win a decision. So I think his only shot is winning by KO. I don't think it comes to fruition. I think we see Gregor go out there and get a submission. The spot that I like is Gregor via submission at plus 250. I think that's a very solid spot. I like everything that I've been hearing from him from his media day. He's very accepting and acknowledges the knockout loss to Kevin Lee and gives him all the props and all that stuff. He's not hung up on it or anything like that. He seems game, ready to go, and he seems like a no-nonsense type of guy. Add Keith Trimble into his corner as well, who's just one of those, save Sayu type of coaches. This guy's going to have his head on straight, and he's going to come out and give us a quintessential Gregor Gillespie type performance. And in his UFC career, some people have called him boring, which I find very weird to say, even though he's had only one decision victory in his entire UFC career, which was his first fight against Glyco Franca. But since then, going out there and just dummying these guys on the ground. And I'm expecting the same thing here this weekend against Brad Riddell, who has shown complete incompetencies when he's dealing with guys in the grappling realms. Obviously, he gets back to his feet against these guys because those guys are starting to suck wind. Gregor Gillespie, not going to suck wind. So I like Gregor here. I think he wins inside the distance. I think he wins via submission. That's the spot that I'm going to go plus 250. How are you seeing this one?
Yeah, listen, I got Gregor. I think a lot of people like Gregor. You know, we've always talked about he's a number 2 wrestler to Khabib. Maybe he could give Khabib a go. But honestly, this is the one concern for me. I'm going to pick him. I'm going to take him by decision of all things. But yeah, like what concerns me is that maybe he's a great athlete, he's a great wrestler, maybe a good grappler. But like, I don't know like how committed he is to actually fighting. So he spent the majority of his adult life wrestling. You know, never quite made to the highest level because Jordan Burroughs wrestles the same fucking weight class.
Yeah.
Not his fault, but like he never quite got there. But you know, this is intriguing. So he makes his MMA debut. He's on short notice. He goes to Brazil, enemy territory, taking on the Ultimate Fighter champion, Gleico Fracca. And he was a plus 120 underdog, actually, in his debut. But then after that, it's like, man, that should have been sky's the limit for this guy. Let's move him forward. But then he takes on Andrew Holbrook. He's a 3-1 favorite. Jason Gonzalez, he's a 5-1 favorite. Jordan Rinaldi, he's a 6-1 favorite. Vince Pichel, he's a 4-1 favorite. Yancy Medeiros, he's a 5-1 favorite. And then against Kevin Lee, he was a minus 165, and he got knocked the absolute fuck out in the first round. So
I broke his jaw.
Yeah. So then he takes off a year and a half, right? Since the Kevin Lee fight, he broke his jaw. He got knocked out. It was a really bad spot for him. He's 34 years old. So people keep talking about him like he's a prospect, like, oh, he's 6-1 on the UFC and he's getting better. It's like he's 34, man. And by his own account, I'd rather be fishing. He likes to fish. He likes being an outdoorsman. He's a great athlete. He's a great competitor. He knows what he's got to do in order to get the victory. But like once the going gets tough, like I don't know. I don't know that you could put faith that that's the difference between him and Khabib. Like Khabib wouldn't rather be fishing. He'd rather be smashing somebody in the octagon. Like his entire demeanor, his entire life, his entire personality is like get to this set goal. Whereas like I feel like Gregor Gillespie has all types of other goals and accomplishments that he wants to set out and do in his life. But is he a great fighter? Yeah, I think he's a great fighter. But I don't know that like that's going to – should I say he's a great athlete? He's a great athlete. He's a great fighter. Like I think the book's still out on that. He's beaten 5 guys that were subpar, and his loss to Kevin Lee is like the one time he stepped up. I completely agree. He's got all of the advantages in the world here against Brad Riddell, and that is the reason why I'm going to pick him. He completes takedowns on all of his fights. And mind you, it is lower-level guys, but he goes out there and he just rinse, repeat with the takedown. His wrestling is second to none. You see him go out there. The Yancy Medeiros fight 6 takedowns. Vince Pichel, who's so strong, 7 takedowns. You know, Jordan Rinaldi only needed 1. Jason Gonzalez, 4 takedowns. The Gleico Fracca fight, his debut, 5 takedowns. He can just default setting, go to takedowns, and take you down. Brad Riddell, he's doing an excellent job of getting up after he gets taken down. You know, Alex Silva, 3 takedowns. Okay, but not the end of the world, right? Magomed Mustafayev, 8 takedowns. Strange, but he got back up really quick after all of them, and it's Magomed Mustafayev. Jamie Malarkey, 3 takedowns. It's like, okay, so everybody that wants to get him down is able to get him down. What I will give him is that he keeps working his way back up. When he does work his way back up, 3 decision wins in the UFC, so maybe power's not there, but you look at his regional scene career and he's dicing guys. I'm pretty sure he diced up Song Kanan too. Like he has good power. He has a lot of these first round knockouts. It just hasn't materialized in the UFC. What he does go is he throws caution in the wind. So I guess my only real question here is that Gregor Gillespie against Kevin Lee looked tentative to wrestle. Looked like he wanted to use his hands a lot more. Now coming off a year-long absence, coming off a knockout, surely he doesn't want to test his hands out. He wants to wrestle. But is there not a world that exists that Gregor Gillespie goes out there, gets the takedown? And, Brad Riddell works his way back up, as he often does. And when he works his way back up, he starts landing these shots. And Gregor doesn't react well. Again, 34 years old, coming off his first career knockout loss, coming over his first career loss in general. Like, there's a lot of things that could go south for him. But I think he's the superior wrestler. Wrestling wins fights. I am going to back him in the spot. The minus 235 line, I think it's starting to get a tad bit out of hand. But I'm going to take Gregor Gillespie by decision. You made a similar point to Paul Shaughnessy made, which is like the submission is live here. Like Gregor's got an ironclad grip. He's got a good rear naked choke. If he's going to be routinely getting takedowns, and to get up, Brad Riddell's going to have to risk putting himself in bad situations to scramble. Then like, why can't Gregor just grab a hold of him and submit him? But I'm going back to the same thing with like a Bontarin versus Kaikar Frost. These guys out of City Kickboxing, they know they're going to be getting out-grappled. They know that they're going to be getting taken down a lot. So they spend a lot of time working on that submission defense. And I feel like that should be enough for him to just stave off some of those submission attempts by Gillespie, survive some rounds. But the takedowns do become the difference maker. Gregor wins a decision, plus 120. But yeah, like Gregor's got to show a little bit something here, right? This guy, he could still be a great contender, but at 34, he needs to win this one and then jump into a top 10 matchup. And the last time he tried jumping into a top 5, top 10 matchup, just wasn't ready for it, right? Did he make a ton of improvements in his time off? Like, I don't know. Broken jaw? Like, does that not change your psyche a bit? We'll have to wait and see, but I'm going to chase that decision, Gregor Gillespie, plus 120.
Yeah, I think everybody's very much excited for this fight just to see how Gregor truly comes out, especially after such a devastating knockout. I wish I was able to collect some sort of historical data regarding guys that got knocked out very brutally for the first time ever and how they've competed after. The only one that like really comes to mind in terms of somebody that got knocked out pretty bad was Frankie Edgar getting knocked out by Brian Ortega and then coming back like a month and a half later and beating Cub Swanson over 5 rounds, right? So that's the only one that truly comes to mind. But Frank Edgar was much more experienced by that point of his career compared to Gregor Gillespie, who was only at 12 or 13 fights at that point in time. But yeah, glad to hear that we're both on Gregor here. I got him via sub, you got him via decision. We'll see how it pans out this weekend. All right.